All right, absolute mayhem with the MRO tribunal, the footy world in uproar. Rocket, I'm not one for doing the Chicken Little stuff, the sky's falling, but I'm telling you, I cannot believe some of the stuff that's going on. So Dan Butler originally handed a one-game penalty for a chase down tackle on Nick Blakey. He got a reprieve at the tribunal. I think 99% of the football world would be in agreement that that was the right choice. Ryan Mansell of Richmond, 3 games for a bump on Fremantle's James Aish. That's disturbed a lot of people, but bump and tackle, different kettle of fish. We'll get into this. And the big one, and I've got to say, I just can't believe this one at all. James Sicily, who launched himself into midair, had no control over his balance, had a teammate come in and also disrupt the trajectory of Hugh McLuggage, the tackle player. No malice at all. It's a tackle, and yet somehow ends up with a 3-game penalty. And I think, in all seriousness, Rocket, the ramifications of this are huge, because I get the thing about responsibility and duty of care and whatever, but in certain tackling situations, and this surely is a textbook one, you don't have that level of control. So it becomes a lucky dip, and the result will be that there'll be plenty of situations where it's easier or safer for a player not to tackle because of the risk of suspension. How are you saying it?
Oh, very much so. I think, yeah, and I think too was one in the Monday game. I think players, I think it was Murphy of Collingwood, trying to milk a free kick, being tackled to the ground, and then he actually pushed his own head to the ground. Trying to, and he got a free kick, but so there's danger in that as well as players trying to milk a free kick extensively. But there seems to be now to be 3 types of tackles that they're adjudicating on: the dump tackle or the sling tackle, which were 2 tackles. Now they're really into the one thing. Your head hits the ground. There's the chase from behind tackle, which Nick Holman last year, and the AFL saying there's 2 motions. Well, they're not 2 motions. Second motion is really the player who's being chased or has got the ball goes to his knees because he's surprised, and then it's his momentum that actually is the second movement. It's not the tackler that has got the second movement. Then there's the James Sicily one, which is probably one where you've got no control of your own equilibrium. You're losing your feet in a desperation tackle. His was a desperation tackle, which we want to see. He probably didn't, if he grabbed McCluggage a bit higher up in his arms, his head probably wouldn't hit the ground, but because he was a little bit lower and he's pinned the hand, the whole body was a bit like a projectile in many ways. So, yeah, I felt that Sicily should have been left off. It was a footy incident and a footy accident in many ways. If we're going to adjudicate on everything like that, it'll end up being, as you say, that players won't tackle, or they'll tackle very cautiously, which will take the fabric of our game or dilute the fabric of our game.
Well, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about it as to why they're going this road. And it's an attempt to sort of insulate themselves from class actions against concussion and that sort of stuff down the track. I just reckon if that is the end game, and I sort of get that from a legal, financial standpoint, but have the courage to come out and say that and say, we're going to simply have to change the rules, because otherwise we're going to have years of this with guys executing tackles that are totally legitimate, totally lacking in malice, and then because of momentum, body weight, angles, or whatever reason, someone's head hits the ground and they are concussed. And that then becomes on the shoulders of the tackling player. That is absolutely unfair. There was nothing untoward about what Sicily did. In fact, I mean, here's the greatest disparity of the lot, Rocket. This is the part that just I find gobsmacking. He was paid a free kick for holding the ball, James Sicily, and the upshot of it, he's suspended for 3 weeks. Look, back in your day, but I mean, you got 3 weeks of belting someone. You never, ever, ever would have won a free kick for something and then been suspended. The system is broken if that's happening.
Yeah, it's obviously. Well, I think it's obviously that it's litigation. It's going to court. Scenario that the AFL are worried about, but wouldn't it be part of their contract going forward that we are going to legislate against and try and protect players as much as possible by A, B, C, and D? But there are going to be circumstances where there's an accidental, e.g. Butler, e.g. Holman last year, e.g. Sicily this year. So examples, and then update that contract as it goes along. And a player signs a contract. If they're up for that, okay, and it's already documented, now they've got no recourse to come back and actually be able to sue. So I think we've got to maintain the level integrity of the game. If we don't, it'll end up being like AFL 9's down the track 10 years' time. And whether that's appealing to supporters and punters and members, time will tell.
Well, it's probably an issue for a lot of global sport, really. American, NFL and their concussion stuff. And maybe it's going to be an issue for rugby league. The other thing that gets me about this, though, is the just the incongruousness, is that a word? Of actions that are dangerous and unnecessary being penalised less than natural football actions. And, sometimes you compare apples with oranges, but I think in this, we've got to a state now, and just bear with me because it takes some explaining this, but we need to step back from the ticking of the boxes, careless, what the consequences of the tackle were, and just have a look at this action versus that action. And last night, in the wake of the Sicily decision, there was two I was looking at. I was looking at the Sicily tackle, and I thought, okay, this guy's launched himself in midair to make a tackle. It's a great footy effort. He's nailed the guy on the tackle. He's off balance, so he can't control where the guy lands. Of course, it's bad that Hugh McLuggage gets concussed, but sometimes it's just one of those things. A guy who has executed a pretty good football action and wins a free kick for it, like that is football. He gets 3 weeks for that. And then I saw the footage of the Pickett bump on Bailey Smith from earlier this year. Now, Pickett got 2 weeks for that because Bailey Smith bounced up and went on and played up the game. But have a look at the actions. One is a tackle trying to dispossess a player of the ball. The other one is a late bump where the guy executing the bump can't have any impact on play. It's dangerous. It's high. He launches himself in the air. That gets 2 games, and the guy executing the tackle gets 3. Now, I don't care about the different circumstances, whatever. That is fundamentally wrong, surely.
It is, and I think that was very well articulated, Rohan.
Thank you, Rock.
But you're right. When Pickett got 2, and that McAdam got 3, and he was a projectile. He could have really put the guy into next week, and he got 3. For Sicily to get any weeks, but to get 3 was completely. It just doesn't parallel with anything else that's gone on. And it's just like they're making it up on the spot as we go along. And okay, we'll wait for this one to happen, and we'll wait for this one to happen. And the unintended consequences of all this is it's the players are in confusion. The coaches, even Chris Scott, are saying that they're in confusion about how they can tackle and what they do. And I saw that, read that the AFL sent out a memo, was a video to each clubs, and there's 7 clubs that didn't even pass it on to players because they reckon it's so grey at the moment and so much confusion that they didn't want to confuse their players anymore. So it's in a parlour state, to be honest.
Well, okay, so I'll just play hypothetical here. Say you're coaching an AFL club right now this week. Are you? Well, Marcus Bontempelli got in this situation where there was speculation about whether he might get rubbed out. Are you going to round up your best half a dozen players, or most important to you, and say to them, listen, just stay out of the way of physical contact. Definitely don't bump, but even don't tackle, because it's not worth the risk of us not having you for the next 2 to 3 weeks.
No, I wouldn't, because that's a key element of the game, is being able to dispossess the opposition. Scoring on turnover is a high percentage of your score. we defend and teams defend really stringent. And we talk about, the defence being a cornerstone of your game. If you don't put pressure on, not so much bump, but if you don't tackle, the opposition's got a free rein, and it'll end up being scores 160 and 150. That's what will happen. They'll end up being going back and forth. It'll be like that AFLX or whatever we had at the time. Like it's not the way we want to play footy. We need to be able to pressure. I think what Bontempelli did, it shows that what the AFL have cracked down on, and some tackles on the weekend, you saw that players are getting used to it. Okay, they're adjusting. Not everything's going to be perfect, and there are going to be some footy accidents. I reckon Sicily was just a footy accident. It was part of the game. It's like a head clash in a marking contest. McVeigh and Hurd hit themselves that time. Well, are they going to suspend McVeigh for hitting Hurd with his head? Like, it's just in a marking. If that was opposition players, would they suspend them nowadays? There are going to be it's a contact sport. We've got it's part of our game. I think the AFL are on the right track to try and minimise some impact and protect players, but I think they've got to be careful not going too far.
And you have to affect that change with rule changes rather than penalising guys for the existing framework. I mean that is the bottom line, isn't it? It's a high speed, physical contact game, and in that sort of game, there will be injuries through incidental contact, which can happen a number of ways. As you say, you're going to start penalising teammates for friendly fire incidents.
And you even look to Jonathan Brown and Justin Kajitsky, and they even admitted themselves, their peripheral vision and awareness wasn't great. So they're going to be players who are going to pop more knocks because of their own situation and their own lack of awareness. So where's the ownership or accountability of a player who actually gets hit in the head? What do they contribute rather than the person who actually had the act? So there's not 100% ruling on this. And I think the AFL have just got to be careful, as I said, they don't go too far and push it into the box that's going to affect the game.
And look, as we wrap up this discussion, and yes, I'm aware of the irony of this, but I think the other sad part is that it means that virtually every week now we have this prolonged discussion of this incident, that incident, the penalties, the inevitable challenging at the tribunal, and it takes the focus away from the point of the whole exercise, which is the game.
Oh, exactly. And that's what happens with the AFL. It's the unintended consequence. The unintended consequence now is we're going to be discussing this every week, and it's going to be done with a fine-tooth comb, where the AFL are doing it on the run, which actions are penalised or not, and they've got to come out with a ruling. And I reckon part of that ruling's got to be there are football accidents and football incidents that we can't help that are not going to be penalised. Whichever, like I reckon the Sicily one and the Butler one, and they've got to be able. At the moment, they're just letting it run, just see what pops up. So they're doing it on the run and seeing which incidents pop up, and then we'll adjudicate on that.
Well, you may have hit the nail on the head before when you talked about AFLX. I mean, maybe that was Gill's end game. He's trying to get the game towards AFLX with, little circus acts and fire eaters and teams called the Raptors or the Deadlies or whatever they were. That'd be great, wouldn't it, Rocket? You turn up.
Well, it showed the people didn't turn up. It's not the product we want to see. So they've got to be careful if they mix with the product too much. That it tips over that edge, goes over that demarcation line, and all of a sudden, people start to drop off.